KD-led Warriors in Minnesota on Sunday for the ABC primetime game. And there he is, D Rose making his debut in a Timberwolves jersey. And the kid is just reckless, man. I know he ain't a kid no more, but golly, it was an ugly debut. And why do I feel like D Rose smells like an old Buick with like roach clips in the ashtray? Yeah, I had to do him wrong. Classic alchemy. But as you see in his few series with the ball, look, almost a dangerous collision, and there were several of them in his few minutes on the floor. Now back to the real action of the game. Klay Thompson struggled all night, just 3 of 12 from downtown. He gets that one to go, but it was the length and athleticism defending the perimeter that seemed to bother Klay. KD not so much though. KD not so much though. Since Steph's gone down, we've got to bear witness KD in kill mode, aka Slim Reaper, aka OKD, right? Where he's just pulling everything and devastating. Wiggins had himself a solid game. He likes that floater with the right hand going left like so many athletes do. How about Karl Anthony Towns with his big boy boots on? Look at him, strong arm Zaza under the basket. He was a problem all night long. Here's J Boogie, J Craw, one of the few men that looks older with a head full of hair. Take another look at it. Once he gets into that ISO motion, you know, that dancing, you might as well head down to the other end of the court. The key is you can't let him start to dance. Transition 3 from Karl, the true inside-out game. He had it going, and I was very impressed with young Cat carrying the load minus Jimmy Butler in Minnesota. Fourth quarter down the stretch, who the Warriors going to go to? You already know. KD baseline dunk. Where's the call? The game got very physical late, and there were very few whistles. Off the screen, Cat, you got to put your hand up. 39 for KD, but the story on this night was Karl Anthony Towns. Watch him spin away from the help and hit the feathery jumper. He's just too big. Pause. But watch, the threat of the 3, it's gonna open up the paint, puts up the floater, but then follows his shot and finishes off the dubs. All right, early one Sunday matinee in Minnesota, and that was a good game. That was an entertaining game with the exception of some of the questionable calls probably down the stretch. You know, this was going to be a tough game. Looking at the roster and everything, like, is anybody really shocked that Minnesota won? I think it was much like the game on Friday night. It was a valiant effort, but ultimately the execution wasn't there. Let's get into, first and foremost, man, let's get into Zaza Pachulia. Zaza. I swear, this may be a little bit egotistical of me, but I swear these dudes watch the channel, because it's like every time I call someone out or I point something out, they seem to fix it or attempt to. And so Zaza may have had his best game as a Warrior, at least on the offensive end. 16 and 11, a couple and ones, like a jumper. It was almost astonishing, right? And so that was amazing. And you remember when the starting lineup changed, how I brought up that Steve Kerr, that this was also possibly about remotivating Zaza Pachulia, right? It's as hard as Zaza plays night in and night out, it's easy to become complacent when you're on such a talented roster, right? And so JaVale, and let's be clear here, Zaza has sat around for 10 days or 14 days or however long it's been and listened to how good JaVale looks in the starting lineup. The lobs and all of this and all the offense opening up, and he came out with something to prove, man. And it was like there was no hesitation. It was just simple aggression. He's capable of this. Now, I want to be clear because styles make fights, and not every team and not every matchup is going to favor Zaza looking for his offense. But when he's aggressive, he's so strong, he has enough touch that he can keep the defense a little more honest than he has been in the past. So shout out to Zaza for, like I said, maybe his greatest offensive performance, let's say, as a Warrior. The second storyline to me is Klay Thompson. And, you know, Klay Thompson to me is an unconscious shooter, right? And he falls in that category of, and it really amazes me how he can be 0 of 5, 0 of 8, and continue to shoot without blinking an eye. But that wasn't the case tonight. And I think there were several factors that went into that. Let's give Minnesota some credit. Andrew Wiggins is very long and very athletic as a defender. And then their forwards, Towns and Taj Gibson, and the other, I'm not going to even try and pronounce his name, the three-point shooter, they're very long and they get out. So on switches, helps, and rotations, they contest a lot of perimeter shots. So there was that. But I think that something happened psychologically with Klay Thompson where you noticed he was handling the ball a lot more and he was trying to create for others. And he has, to some success, done so. But he had 4 turnovers, and a lot of them were off the dribble. Not very many of them were forced. It was like his lack of ball handling skills were exposed, and I think that it rattled his confidence just as a basketball player. So it's like it wasn't the shooting, I think, that rattled his confidence. It was his turnovers and his inability to handle the ball while being pressured. And what he does is, what I notice is, he's not comfortable continuing his dribble when he switches hands or changes directions. A good guard, a good ball handler, they can get bumped or they can change directions, change hands, and they'll have a pause in their dribble and they'll continue to dribble. That's the sign of a good ball handler, and Klay's just not comfortable doing that. And he was exposed with those 4 turnovers, and I think it got in his head a little bit. He ended up 3 of 12 from downtown, and if just 1 or 2 of those went in the second half, I think we would have had a different outcome on that game, right? Karl Anthony Towns, if y'all go back and see my way too early NBA predictions, I had picked him as an MVP candidate. And then as the season progressed and I watched him, and Jimmy Butler kind of stepped into the alpha role, and I think it staggered Towns a little bit in his development, but he's just too nice. He's a little bit too nice. Everybody knows it, right? He doesn't have a mean bone in his body, but he is very strong, and he big boy Draymond at the end of that game. What do you have, like 14 in the fourth quarter? Finished with 31 and 16. And he finally is taking advantage of his size. For me, for my taste, this season and beyond and before that, he settled for the perimeter too much, and he can shoot the 3. That's well and good. But ultimately, his bread will be buttered in the paint with his size and his touch around the basket. And he big boy Draymond down the stretch. There's no real answer to that. That's why he potentially can be an elite MVP candidate. It won't happen this year. But he showed me something down the stretch there where he was willing to use his size and get a little more nasty than I've seen in the past, right? Now, to finish the game, I don't know how many of you noticed, but it was Quinn Cook and Nick Young. There was no Livingston and obviously no Iguodala or David West. So we know the rotations with Curry out, that there is a limited bench. But I really questioned Cook being in at the end of the game. Now, I'm recording this right after the game. I haven't heard the press conferences or Kerr's explanation for this. I'm assuming Kerr is going to say he liked how Cook was defending Teague. Teague's very quick, and Cook perhaps could match his quickness. But you saw a couple times on switches, he's too small on any switch, right? He's too small on any switch. He hasn't hit a 3, so I don't know about the spread the floor theory on the offensive end. He hasn't been able to yet. And I just thought Livingston, at that point in the game, the final 2 minutes, you already have Nick Young in there, to have Quinn in there. So now you've got 2 guys that aren't used to closing games in there. I thought that was a mistake by Kerr, and he could have even, I know there's less timeouts this year, but he could have went and substituted offense for defense at a certain point down the stretch there. And then you saw when we got the rebound and really our last opportunity to keep this thing close, Cook drives and gets roofed at the rim. And he's just, you like that he wasn't afraid to do that, but don't do it. Don't do it. Know your role. You know what I'm saying? Know your role. So KD needed to take that shot, or Klay, even though he was 3 of 12. So I thought that hurt ultimately, and I questioned Kerr's decision. Again, is he doing some big picture shit? Is he putting Cook in a pressure situation to see how he would react or get him that experience and kind of maybe sacrificing the outcome of the game? I don't know. I haven't heard the press conference, but he should have had Sean in the game at the end, and he was terrific off the bench all night. Livingston was a plus 15. And Quinn Cook was a minus 18. And you know me, I'm not a big plus-minus guy, but I just want to put that out there. So that was a mistake. KD, again, killing it, right? Killing it. And he would lead the league in scoring if Steph Curry was out for an extended period of time. I think it's pretty obvious. But he was frustrated, and there was some bad calls. There was a home whistle, but it is what it is, man. It is what it is. You got to keep moving. They're going to have to keep playing through that. I think they showed a little bit too much frustration down the stretch with that. But it was a physical game, and Minnesota, particularly Taj Gibson, got away with a lot in the paint. But Minnesota, they needed this game more. Let's be honest, right? They're in a fight for playoff contention. Their leader is out, and it's just a more desperate team, and they closed it out. So they got a couple days off. It'll be interesting to see what that injury report is going into the game on Wednesday night. Patreon, check out my extended breakdown. I have a lot of schematics and fundamental skills that I'm going to break down in this game when it comes to Klay, Quinn Cook, some of the things Zaza did. So that video will probably be released tomorrow on my Patreon. Be sure to check for that. Hit that like, share, and subscribe. I'm out, y'all.